And keep your eyes open in the months to come because we'll be giving away more and more books. Woo! From BEA.
Because we have tons of extras.
You saw some of them at the beginning of this video. There are more. That was like a small sampling. We had to ship books home because they wouldn't fit in our suitcases.
Even when we intentionally left room for books.
Yeah. And we had carry-ons full of books, but decided that we should ship them because we didn't think that the people would let them on the plane because they were so big.
Yeah.
Yeah. They gave these out there to carry books in.
Do you see how large, first of all, this way, and then how like wide this way, and then like how deep? Like that's crazy.
But
we filled them up like every day.
several times.
Several times.
But before we did all that, we went to the author's breakfast.
The author's breakfast.
The MC, I guess, was Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. So we saw her.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and thank you, really, honestly, all of you.
At the author's breakfast, there was a panel of 3 authors
Besides
who spoke.
Sarah Ferguson.
Yes, who spoke. And we got a copy,
A free copy.
of each of their most recent books. So the first one to speak was Cory Doctorow, who wrote this book, For the Win, which looks pretty interesting.
It's about gaming and how some people, what they do is they like play lower level games over and over and over again to collect gold or whatever currency the game uses, and then they actually physically sell it to someone else who's too lazy to get the points themselves.
It's called Gold Farming.
Yeah.
And so this book is about what would happen if all those people who are gold farming were unionized. So, it sounds pretty interesting. Then, the next person was Matali Perkins. I hadn't heard of her, and then once she started talking about the books that she had written, I realized I'd read a lot of them and really enjoyed them. So she talked about, her speech was interesting because she talked a lot about books as
Windows and mirrors.
yes.
Windows being you look at their story and you think it's a very good story, and mirrors being you can relate to that story.
It was very interesting. And we got her next book, Bamboo People, which is about Burmese. It's about Burma and the Burmese war thing.
That's when I discovered the power of books as windows and mirrors. Now I threw open, that's the Queen's Public Library. I threw those windows open with really no adult hand to guide me. I read all the time. I read under the pillow, under the blankets with a flashlight. I read out on the fire escape. I just kept reading and reading and reading, and I would get scolded by my poor beleaguered mom, who would say, "Put down those storybooks! Stop reading those storybooks and study!" But all I could do was just read and read and read. Now, when I was in elementary school, I really didn't care much that everybody I was reading about was white, that there were no Indian characters in any of the books I was reading. At that age, for me, stories were windows, windows, windows. And as any imaginative child, I just wanted to travel far and wide. So I was also finding mirrors in many of those books. So I was finding books about girls who loved their sisters as much as I did. And I was finding books about girls who liked to scribble poetry and stories like I did. So 7th grade was when I desperately needed stories as mirrors. And I didn't have any. There was no books really reflecting my experience. So when I started writing, I tried to reflect that. So thanks to great editors like Megan Tigley at Little Brown and Stephanie Lurie for
Third and final author to speak was Richard Peck, and he was hilarious.
He quoted like Lewis Carroll / Charles Dodgson 10 times at least.
He started off his speech with a quote from Alice in Wonderland, and that just proves how awesome he was. Awesome. And his latest book is 3/4 Dead.
This
one isn't out yet.
It's not available in stores.
You probably can't see from there, but it
it
says,
says,
"This is an advanced, uncorrected proof not for resale."
perhaps this shall be given away in a later video on our channel.
Especially considering the fact that it's signed. You see that? That's signage right there.
Signed and it's an arc. Craziness.
So, you can... This one I think is about...
It's based on an actual... It's based on an actual story about these people, these teenagers, and they got into a car crash. And this is like what happens to their leftover friend.
Yes.
And, like, they're not completely dead, as the title implies. 3/4 dead.
Because I was a teacher. I was a teacher once, as you could tell by looking. An English teacher, of course. What else is there? The era in which Latin teachers were run out of entire towns, pursued by angry anti-intellectual mobs, composed of lazy children, ignorant parents, and school administrators who had risen once too often from the social studies department. And in the absence of the Latin teacher, there was so little English left to be taught. We had to call it language arts, which is apparently English without grammar or homework. So I had to quit teaching in order to communicate with the young. But I had...
One of the best parts was that we got badges, as you can see, and we're carefully covering up the name of ourselves and where we're from.
Well, just where I'm from. You already know my name.
This, if you notice what it says at the bottom here, it says published authors.
This isn't the lie. This isn't a lie. This is the truth.
Because last year, our school published a book that had entries from everyone in the 8th grade class that were very celebrated.
our grade. That's lovely.
Oh no, now they can stalk us through public school. They were their grade, or what was it saying? Oh, so we put in poetry. So technically speaking, we are now published authors.
Because it was published and sold.